Welcome back to Building Teams That Win in our series, The Art of Conflict. Let's briefly review. We've been teaching you about a new way to approach conflict, which has 3 steps. The first step is to assess. You assess yourself first to make sure that your emotions and feelings aren't going to make the problem worse. Then you assess the other people in the conflict to make sure that you've got perspective. Your goal is to remove your assumptions and gain as much clarity as possible so that you can approach this situation with wisdom. Now, the final component of this assess step is to ask yourself, what do I want the final outcome of this conflict to be? We call this beginning with the end in mind. And this is going to help you to stay focused on your goal instead of reacting in the moment. The second step in this approach is to connect. Now, the idea here is all about the actual moment when you're going to have your conflict conversation. So the connection that I'm referring to is not hugs and high fives in the hallways. It is, however, taking the time to engage the other person with curiosity and a desire to understand where they're coming from. And it's important to note that working from connection doesn't mean you're throwing accountability out the window. It simply means that holding someone accountable doesn't have to lead to disconnection. Now, all of this adds up to step 3 in our model, which is to measure. First we assess, then we connect, and now we measure. How will we know if our moment of conflict was successful if we don't measure? Let me illustrate this with a simple example. Let's say you tell me you want to go on a trip. Hooray! Awesome! I love this! How exciting! Where do you want to go? South, you say. I want to go south. Awesome! How far south? See, this is where the story for most of us would stop, because most people have no idea what they actually want when it comes to conflict. They just know they want to go south. They have conflict, but they don't know where they want to go. It's like planning a road trip south. What does that even mean? Does it mean 1 foot south? Hooray, we made it. Does it mean 10 miles south? Or does it mean 1,500 miles south to the Florida Keys where I'm going to sink my toes in the sand? See, knowing where you want to go and what you want to see along the way allows you to measure your success. So let's put it all together. When conflict shows up, you first assess. First yourself, then others, then the goal, the end in mind goal that you want to achieve. This is like putting your finger on the map and saying, I want to go south to the Florida Keys, instead of just saying, I want to go south. The clearer you are, the easier it is to measure. Now we move on to our next step, which is connection. This is where you lead with curiosity and a desire to understand, clarifying how we got to where we're at and what could we do differently to create a better outcome, which is what leads us to our final step, which is to measure. And the things that you can measure can be things like tasks, such as like taking out the trash, or behaviors, such as gossiping or encouraging, or even attitudes, such as being negative or creating drama. The most important thing you need to know about measuring is that you have to do it. And you have to do it frequently and obviously, because we can't expect what we won't inspect. Now, one final thing I want to point out as we wrap up this segment is that most leaders, if they're decently good, will assess themselves. And if they're even better, these leaders will use connection to help them build strong relationships that can help them to navigate the conflict. But the very best of all of the leaders that I have met are the leaders that don't stop there, but they also lean in to find ways to measure their success so that they can become world-class as leaders and help their team become world-class in their ability to implement their vision and their goals.